Hi there, and welcome to another tutorial in quantitative reasoning. So this one is going to cover the concept of proportions. It's kind of a tag on from our previous video on percentages, so make sure you've watched that one first, so in order so you can understand the concepts that we're going to talk about here. So from our previous video, you'll probably remember we discussed that there are 5 different percentage questions. The first 3, working out a percentage difference, a new value and an old value, we covered in the percentages tutorial. This tutorial is going to focus on those final 2. So the proportion greater than or the proportion of an amount. Those are the ones we're going to cover today. So what do we actually mean by proportion greater than and proportion of an amount? So the sample questions on screen hopefully show you that a proportion greater than is sort of saying by how much percentage is X greater than Y. Whereas a proportion of an amount style question is saying sort of what is X in terms of Y. So they're both going to be done through similar methods, but they have a different answer. And it's important that we get our heads around the difference between a proportion greater than and proportion of an amount. So I'm going to talk a lot about that in this tutorial, that you'll probably be bored to death, but hopefully you will get that difference ingrained in you. So when we're thinking about the proportion greater than, this is a sort of question we could get asked. So by how much percent is Robbie better than Adam? So you'll hopefully realise for this we're going to have to do some sort of fraction going on here. But let's identify what our two numbers, what our 2 variables are. So we've got Robbie and Adam here. Now we've got the 2 scores. The important thing is that we figure out fundamentally what way round do the scores go? Which one goes on top? The key word and the key way that we look at those 2 different, so the difference between Robbie and Adam, is that word than, so the better than. So how much does Robbie score better than Adam's? So that tells us that Robbie is going to be on top. So Robbie's going to have to be the top number of our equation here. So let's just pop that all out and see what number we get. So we're going to be taking Robbie's score, which we said was 78, and we're going to be dividing that, or putting that over Adam's score, which in this case is 54. And that's going to give us a total out of 1.44. Now, in order to convert that to a percentage, we just think of that as 100% plus that sort of 44% on top. So it's going to be 44% increase or 44% better. So hopefully you can see the similarities of that to our multiplier method that we learned in the last lesson. Converting that 1.44 is our sort of multiplier, and changing that to a 44% increase. So we're using the same skill, so it's really important that you've understood what we covered in the previous lesson first. So this was an example of a proportion greater than question. So we were asked by how much percentage is Robbie better than Adam? And we got 44%. Now this may also be asked in the context of a proportion of an amount question. So very similar logic and similar equation. The prime difference is we don't take that 1.44 and convert it to 44%. We actually would leave it as 144%. So an example of how this question would be worded is, what is Robbie's score as a percentage of Adam's score? So we'd just be taking that 78 over that 54 to get 1.44, 144%. So here's another example of a proportion greater than question. This one is a slight miss on where we're going to do a proportion less than. But the first thing that we have to work out is what way round is our fraction going to go. We've got 2 numbers, but what way round is it going to go? So identify the 2 people that we have going on here. So we've got Alyssa and Henry. It's Alyssa's distance than Henry's distance, which means Alyssa's going to be on the top of our fraction here. So we're going to do Alyssa as 4.3. So we're going to put her on top. And then Henry is going to be our 5.4 there. So he's the denominator of our fraction. And then 4.3 divided by 5.4 is going to give us approximately 0.8. So this shows us using our multiplier method, that's going to be a 20% decrease. So 20% less, which is the answer to this question. So similarly, we're also just going to go over what this means in terms of a type 4 versus a type 5 question. So type 4, this means that Alyssa's distance is 20% less than Henry's distance. In terms of a type 5 question, so the proportion of an amount, this means that Alyssa's distance is 80% off Henry's distance. So stark difference there. You can really see the difference with this question of just how you need to be very careful over what the question is asking you in order to figure out which one of these methods do you follow. So let's put this into the context of an actual UCAT question and try one that's in the style of one you may actually get within QR. So pause the video now, give it a go, and then come back and we'll talk through it together. So the first thing that we want to notice with this question is we've got 5 answer options, 6 lines of the table. This is one of my favourite things to do at the beginning, is just get rid of any of the data that we're not going to need. So as heartbreaking as it is, and it truly is a loss, we are going to get rid of Oreo Dream. So say goodbye to that one for now. So we've got 5 things left. What do we do with them? So we're asked for the sort of which has surpassed the target by the greatest amount. So we know that we're going to have to be doing sales, which is going to be this first column here, over target, which is going to be our second column here. So that's going to be the proportion that we use, sales divided by target, because we're looking for how much greater than the target is the sales. So let's just eyeball our data first and see if we can off the bat eliminate any of them. So going down, I immediately see Cinnabon is it's just a poor show, really. I would have expected Cinnabon to do better, but we're going to score off Cinnabon because it's a tiny increase. Reese's Peanut Butter, similar. It's a love or hate relationship for that one, but we're going to have to score out Reese's Peanut Butter as well. So we're left with only 3 sums, thankfully, which makes it a lot easier for us to do. So let's just start popping them into equations. So for the original, we're going to be doing that 850 divided by that 700 there. So let's do 850, but we're only going to write 85 because we don't need to pop on zeros that we don't need. 85 divided by 70, which if we pop that into our calculator is going to be 1.21. So that's going to give us a 21% increase. Fab, so 21% increase. For the second line of our table, fresh strawberries, let's take that 303 over 240. So we're just going to round that to make it a bit easier and do 30 over 24, which hopefully you can immediately see is going to be 5 over 4, which is going to be 1.25. So that 1.25 is going to be the same as a 25% increase. And the last line of the table that we're going to be doing here is going to be that lemon meringue, which is my personal favourite, but we're going to be doing 245 over 205. Again, let's just round to 24 over 20 to make it a bit easier for us. 24 over 20 is going to be the same as saying 6 over 5, which is going to be the same as saying 1.2. So remember, always estimate if you can. It makes it so much easier for yourself. So that's going to be a 20% increase. So fab, surprisingly, as boring as it is, fresh strawberry is actually going to be the best cheesecake on the market. It looks like everyone's having a bit of a diet at the moment. But the answer is B, fresh strawberry. So as we talked about earlier, we use the multiplier method basically. The percentage increase that we worked out in the last lesson is fundamentally the exact same method as our proportion greater than. Now this isn't a surprise to us as we're doing the same mathematics each time. The only way this is different in terms of what we're being asked. With percentage increase, we're given a new value and an old value. In terms of a proportion greater than, we can be given anything. We can be given 2 values and just asked to compare them. They don't have to be necessarily an old and a new. But we use the same logic, so it's really important that you master the multiplier method and understand what a multiplier means, and we covered that in our previous lesson. So let's talk about the example that we used earlier, but in the context of proportion of an amount. So the same thing we're going to do is identify our 2 ways round. So Robbie's going to be on the top of the fraction, Adam's going to be on the bottom of the fraction. And we're just going to write that as 78 over 54, which is going to give us what we had earlier, which is 1.44. But of course for this one, it's going to be 144%, as the question we're being asked is different. By how much percent is Robbie's score better than Adam's? So let's try another proportion of an amount type question. So again, with this one, we've not seen it before, so let's just break it down and have a look at the 2 different characters in it. So we've got to figure out what way round our fraction is going to go first. So we've got Henry's wage as a percentage of Tom's, which means Henry's wage is going to have to be on the top here. So let's pop that into a fraction we've got. So we're going to put Henry on top, that 9.5, and then we're going to put it over Tom's wage, which is the £7 here, 9.5 divided by 7, throw that into our calculator, and we get 1.36, which is going to be the exact same as 136%. So again, just an example of the proportion of an amount style questions. Now, just to recap again the difference between type 4 and type 5. Type 4, we're asking about how much greater is one than the other. So Henry's wage is 36% higher than Tom's. But in terms of the proportion of an amount, we're asked, what is Henry's wage as a percentage of Tom's? So here his wage is 136% of Tom's wage. So again, let's put this into the context of a UCAT style question and give it a go. So pause the video and have a try yourself. So with this one, the first thing I want to know is, well, how much water is there? So I know that they've got all these fancy schmancy ingredients, and anything apart from that is going to be water. So let's add up these three values here, this 40, 30 and 50, which adding up in my head goes to 120 mils. So know that the total volume is going to be 600. So we should just be able to do 600 minus that 120 mils. And that is going to give us our total water content of 480 mils. And then all we're going to have to do is our final step is do 480 over 600, same as 48 over 60, which I know in my head instantly is going to be 80%. And thankfully, that is answer option C for this one. So again, very well done if you managed to get that one. So we're going to stick with our exact same question stem and have another go of a type of proportion question. So again, pause the video now and give it a go yourself. So the first thing we want to see is what data do we need? So we know we've got herbal essences and Garnier here. So work out what way round we're going to want them. So we're going to have herbal essences on top, Garnier on the bottom, and then work out what data from the table that we're going to need. So we're going to have to do a calculation first. As you see here, we've got volume per unit cost. So all we're going to do is do volume divided by cost. So for herbal essences, that's going to be 600 divided by 3.19, which I'll pop into my calculator, and that gives me 188. So that is my sort of volume per unit cost. It doesn't really matter the units, as we're just going to compare one to the other. For Garnier, we're going to have 750 divided by that 5.1, and that's going to give us our volume per unit cost of 147. Now the final thing is we throw it into that equation at the top. So we're going to do 188 divided by 147, which is going to give us our answer again in our calculator of 1.28. And as you can see there, that's going to equate to 28%. We're just going to go again to answer option C. Well done if you managed to get that one. There's a few steps involved, but thankfully not too tricky. So here's another one for you to have a go of. Different question stem to spice things up a bit. But again, pause the video and give it a go yourself. So with this one, hopefully you'll have noticed it's the proportion of an amount style question. So that's type 5 question. So let's work out what data we need and what way round it's going to go. So hopefully you can see that it's going to be Afghanistan on the top of the equation and Barbados on the bottom of the equation. So let's just extract the data we need, which is the 2015 values there. Pop that into our equation. So that's going to be 1.31 over our Barbados number, which is 0.9, which is going to give us an answer, if we pop that into our calculator, of 1.46 or 146%. So for this one, answer option D is the best one to go for here. So yeah, well done if you managed to get that one. So here's one final question for you to have a go of using proportions. So again, pause the video now, give it a go, and come back when you're ready for the answer. So with this one, again, we are going to be taking just a simple sort of percentage for this one, a simple proportion. So we're going to be looking for the data that we're actually going to need from this equation. So we're going to be needing only the data for talent show number 1 and the Queen's speech. Now there's going to be no division going on here because it's not a proportion difference or a percentage difference. It's literally just a difference, which makes it very, very nice for us. So we're just going to want to work out how many of the over 65s were watching the Queen's speech, which is 34%. So that means that overall we're going to take 34% of that 6.52 million, which we would pop into our calculator as 0.34 times 6.52 for ease. And that's going to come out with 2.22. Now bear in mind that that's still in the units of million, but just for ease, we're not doing millions. And then for talent show number 1, we've got 22% of that 5.45 million, which if we pop into our calculator is going to get us out 1.20. Take our difference there, we're going to get 1.02, and bear in mind that that's still in millions, so 1.02 million is going to be the same as answer option C, 1,020,000 of our golden oldies watching the difference between these two shows. So the two types of questions that we managed to cover in today's tutorial is the proportion greater than, bear in mind it can also be proportion less than, and also the proportion of an amount style questions. It's really important that you can discern the difference between those two styles, because as we've seen, similar methods, different answers. So make sure that you fully understand what you're being asked before you jump in and do the question. In terms of how to consolidate this tutorial, of course, recap the multiplier method. You've seen it as both important for percentage and proportion questions. And now that you've got knowledge of all 5 types of the percentage questions, so both from this tutorial and our previous tutorial, you now are armed with all the possible knowledge in order to go out and try any percentage question that the UCAT can throw at you. So consolidate all of that learning together and put it into practice with each of these 5 types of percentage questions. But well done on getting through another lesson, and I hope to see you for another one again soon. To unlock the rest of the series, which is 70 videos including live walkthroughs and over 1,000 different questions, just click the link in the description below.